ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sportsbooks and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for Tea Time Wagers with Brady Kannon. This week, right behind me, the 17th hole. How many balls will land in the water? TPCSawgrass it is for March 13th, 2024. Super stoked talking to Brady backstage. Is it Scotty's world? I'm starting to feel that way. If he putts like he did last weekend, it's a wrap. And the odds that just came out, not just came out, but I get the fresh odds from Circa and Jeffrey Benson and Derek Stevens. Thank you as always. We'll be talking to Brady about that. But first, let's give a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnership, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, please run on over to Google Play. Download it. It's free. Start keeping track of all your bets, your ROI, and start investing. Stop having this for entertainment. As tonight, Brady's going to give us some outright winners, hopefully. He'll be giving us some head-to-head matchup plays and some top 20 plays as well. So head on over to WagerWire. And if you're looking for a little hustle, little flash cash, send an email to affiliates at wagerwire.com. Tell them JD from ECSI sent you. Travis, Zach, the rest of the community will take good care of you. So without further ado, the true star of this show, the one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, how are you? Quite the introduction. I'm humbled. Thank you very much. And quite a big event on our hands here, commonly referred to as the fifth major, the Players Championship. And I love the backdrop that you have there, the 17th hole. One of my favorite holes in all of golf. I think, even the casual fan recognizes the 17th hole at Sawgrass. That finishing stretch, 16, 17, and 18, as good as it gets. Supplies so much drama typically. We'll get into it further about this tournament, but this is usually one of the really good ones to watch. Obviously, you have a tremendous field, if not the best field that we see the entire year, and it is so volatile. You can make a lot of birdies here, and you can make a lot of double bogeys here, and I think that adds to the excitement.
Well, we talked at length for weeks upon weeks about how the PGA Tour, if you weren't 100-1 or better, you need not apply 100-1s, 200-1s, 400-1s. And you said on our show last week, we think we're going to get inside the 40-1 number. And sure enough, Mr. Sheffler, who was the pre-flop favorite, an amazing weekend. The putter got hot. Bring us back to last weekend and what you saw.
Well, Scotty actually gained shots on the field with the putter for 3 days in a row. He gained about a half a stroke on the field on Friday, a stroke and a half on Saturday, and almost 4 strokes on the field on Sunday. He was really on fire on Sunday. I think he was number 1 or number 2 in strokes gained putting just for that 4th round. I believe he finished 5th overall for the tournament, but that is completely unlike anything we've seen out of Sheffler in a long time. In fact, a friend of mine, a great follow on Twitter, Justin Ray, he's just full of stats and trends and great information, historical notes about landmarks and milestones on the PGA Tour. And he let me know that it was not until the U.S. Open of last year, the 2023 U.S. Open, was the last time that Scotty Sheffler was able to string 3 days in a row together in one single tournament that he was gaining strokes on the field with the putter. So it'd been a long time coming. You and I have talked about it on this show, as people all over the golfing world have. If this guy could ever figure out how to putt, look out. Well, we saw what happened. We saw that in living color on Sunday at Bay Hill, where he just stormed past the rest of the field. He shot the low round of the day, 66, on the most difficult day of scoring at Bay Hill. His 66 was only one of 4 rounds shot in the 60s out of 58 players that day. And he just ran away with it, beating Wyndham Clark, who was a tough customer, didn't exactly do a whole lot wrong, but Scotty was just that good, and he beat Clark by 5 shots.
And I'm glad you brought up Wyndham Clark, because on the weekend, especially, a lot of people out there saying, hey, you better grab your major futures now, because they were talking about Clark and, some 50-1 spots, 60-1 spots, whether it was the Masters, the Open, the British Open. And then he just gets blown away. Sam Burns knocking on the door, had a couple tough holes on the weekend. There, Will Zalatoris, everyone's talking him up again this weekend. From a standpoint other than Scotty, what did you see? I like to call them flash and fades, because there were some guys out there that were in form, that were having a good tournament, and then just either had a couple bad holes. Actually, there was a few tin cup holes out there. What did your eyes see overall for the weekend?
Well, there certainly was some tin cup like holes out there. Jake Knapp took a few attempts at a particular hole, ended up making a 12. Burns, you mentioned, a guy we were on last week. I mean, we went into Sunday looking like we were going to have 3 top 20 finishes, and not one of them made it. That was pretty tough to swallow. Burns started the day with a triple bogey, made a triple bogey later in the day, eventually made a birdie on 16 and sneaked by Patrick Cantlay by 1 shot to win that matchup for us. We won 2 matchups at underdog prices last week, which were nice. Burns at plus 105 over Cantlay, and then your guy Brendan Todd at nearly plus 140 over Patrick Rogers. It was nice to get those 2. We weren't able to do much else. I was able to bet Scotty Sheffler in game on Sunday pretty early on when the price was still relatively decent. They took him off the board when he was minus 5,000 through about 14 or 15 holes. It was so understood that he was going to go on to win at that point. But the guy, Wyndham Clark is really interesting. Obviously he has a major to his credit. He's got 2 wins in signature events and a runner-up, the runner-up being last week at Bay Hill. This guy seems to be a signature event stud, that's for sure. I'm not quite sure what to make of him just yet, because I heard somebody relate him to a modern day Brooks Koepka just showing up for the majors. It's like Wyndham Clark just showing up for the signature events, because sometimes he does have off weeks where he just falls kind of into the mediocrity. But he is certainly a case study we have to keep our eye on. Obviously, the guy has the talent, I think, to get it done at any point, just about anywhere. But I think the guy that impressed me the most, and it's a guy you mentioned that a lot of people continue to talk about. He's become one of my favorite players in the world, and that's Will Zalatoris. I just love watching this kid. And if you look at what he did last week, I think he's probably the only guy right now, Jeff, that's ball striking might be able to keep up with Scotty Sheffler. That's how good his iron play is, his ball striking off the tee, what have you. But if you look at what he did last week, he played beautifully. He had a stretch of 5 holes on Saturday in which he played them at 4 over, and that was his undoing. Everything else he did was remarkable. He was at 11 under par through about number 14 or so on Saturday, until maybe 13 or so, until he hit that final 5-hole stretch where he had a couple of double bogeys. And that was really the beginning of the end for him. But even on Sunday, I think he shot even par, which was a great round compared to what everybody else did on Sunday. I think he had like 1 birdie and 1 bogey or something. It was a very clean card. And some people will look at that and say, he didn't make a run, he didn't make a charge. He had one of the cleanest cards of the entire field. He played really, really well. Didn't make that many mistakes. 1 par, 1 bogey, something like that, if I recall exactly. But I was impressed overall with his 4 days. Like I say, it was just that 5-hole stretch really where he kind of got out of sorts. But I believe this guy's going to win this year. He could win a major this year. I already have a ticket on him to win the Masters. He is one heck of a player, and he's improved his putting a ton. That was really one of the problems with him last year, I believe, especially before he had to bow out due to injury. He couldn't make a putt. We remember at the 2021, or was it 2022, I believe, PGA Championship, when he was there in a playoff with Justin Thomas. He missed some putts in regulation that would have won him the PGA Championship that year. And of course, I was on him there too. But the putting has turned around. He's gone to that anchored putter, the long putter, whatever you want to call it. And it's improved his putting a great deal. And it's kind of like Scheffler. If Zalatoris starts to hole a few putts, look out. And he has started to hole a few. And I do believe he's going to probably get more than one win this season. I don't know about a major, but I do believe he'll have multiple wins on tour this year.
I saw earlier today, Victor Hovland, not on the course yet. He was working extra long on the driving range. Seems like he's going through something right now. Should we be concerned with Mr. Hovland?
Well, I don't know if concern is the right word. I think I think health-wise he's fine as far as I know. His game's just gone cold, and I believe he switched coaches. He made a change, and I believe it was with his coach, his swing coach. And I just don't know why you would have done that. He was absolutely on fire, the hottest player in the world at the end of last year. He won the FedEx St. Jude. He won the BMW, FedEx Cup. I mean, the guy won, I believe, I want to say 2 tournaments in the last 4 weeks of the season or something like that. And was blowing people away and just striping it. I mean, he looked as good as he's ever looked, really. And, he came out a little soft at Kapalua this year, didn't really turn many heads. And that's kind of continued. And I thought he would be able to flip the switch last week at Bay Hill because that course is ideal for his style of game. And it didn't happen there either. Now, I was saying earlier, it looked like we were going to have 3 guys finish top 20 on Sunday, and Victor was one of those guys. He was tied for 21st, and he wasn't doing anything crazy, but he wasn't awful either. I mean, he was tied for 21st, not too bad. And then he just kind of tanked again on the final round. He'd take 2 steps forward and 1 step back consistently throughout that event last week in Orlando, and just can't find a way to get on a roll. And that ended up costing us a top 20 finish bet and costing him another, mediocre finish, and very atypical of what we saw at the end of last year. So I don't know what's wrong. Maybe it was the switch of a coach and he's working on some new, tweaks in the swing. I'm not positive. My question would be, what if it ain't broke, why did you change what you had going on last year? But it's not uncommon, I guess. I mean, in the reverse, we saw Justin Thomas have a lousy season last year and start to pick it up at the very end, missing out on the FedEx Cup playoffs by 1 shot when he really turned it on at the Wyndham Championship. And now JT, has built on that momentum and is having himself a pretty darn good year. Just finished 12th last week at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, finished 12th in Phoenix. And he's another guy I have a ticket on to win the Masters because I'm hoping he will peak at the right time. And I think he's building towards that.
I'm going to bring up the Circa odds before we turn the fairway over to you. And I want you to try to help explain. We got a lot of people watching live, and thank everyone here that's watching live. If you're watching on YouTube and have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. It's free. Not like everything else in this world here. And I want to show these odds to everyone here. These were retweeted by Circa Sports before we went live here. And I want you to be able to explain to the average person that's jumping on board here today, or someone that wants to get into golf. I look at Scotty Sheffler, well-deserved, plus 555 for $100 bet. The next closest one, Rory McIlroy, almost $1,000 difference, which we talk about. Well, if I can get 2 people for the price of one and look for quote unquote value, these are the lanes that we're shopping in. We were talking about Will Zalatoris at plus 2,000, Xander Schauffele plus 2,350. I'm bringing up Victor for a reason a few minutes ago, and I want you to add to this. Victor Hovland, almost $2,000 difference from Scotty Sheffler and Victor Hovland there. And Max Homa, Justin Thomas, Morikawa, can't like looking at a board like this, a kid in a candy store. Explain to people the reason why some of these numbers are like this.
Well, Scotty, anytime Scheffler's in the field, he's the number one player in the world. So he is going to be a prohibitive favorite. And it is a little alarming to see how much of a favorite he is this week. Now, last week at Bay Hill, he was in the neighborhood of 7-1, maybe plus 750, maybe 8-1. If you were really lucky, you could find that. And that was a field of only 69 players. Now, granted, that was a signature event. Those were some of the best players in the world, but only 69 players. Now you have, once again, the best players in the world here on property and an additional 60 some players. You've got, 144, 156 players in this field, whatever it is. And yet Scotty's odds have gotten shorter, which is amazing. He went from 7-1 last week, now in the neighborhood of 5-1 this week. That's pretty incredible. Now, if you think Scotty Scheffler is worth it, we talk about this sometimes, Jeff, the overuse of the term value. A lot of times people think value just simply means a number that has a plus by it. And if it's minus money, it's not value. I always go back to the story of Floyd Mayweather when he was fighting. He might have been minus 500 to win a fight, but it was good value because he should have been minus 2,000. So, if you think Scotty Scheffler should be even money to win this golf tournament, then 5-1 is a heck of a bargain. And that is value. You just have to go through each guy. And I think it's good practice to kind of make your own assumption on what the price would be. And you can do all kinds of research and come up with models or however you want to try and figure it out. But what you think is a fair price on a particular golfer, and then compare that to what odds you're seeing and shop around, because odds do vary from store to store. But, if you can find a store that is posting a number that you think is a good bargain versus what you think the number should be, then that is probably your first step in towards making a bet. And I would say you don't just immediately fire, but you say, okay, hey, look here, I'm getting 28-1 when I think he should be 25-1 or 20-1 or whatever. And I see that as a good price. So let me research a little further. Maybe I'm missing something that has gone on, in the past couple of days that I don't know or whatever. And eventually, if you can't find anything to the contrary, you go ahead and you place your bet and you go from there. Like you say, it is kind of a kid in a candy store seeing all these guys. And especially, I think the greatest example is a Masters futures board, because the Masters futures are up, since like November or December or earlier. And you go back and check it and you're waiting for the Masters. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can get Gary Woodland at 250-1. I'm going to jump on that. And I'm going to jump on this guy. And pretty soon come April, you've got, 14 different futures, and that's probably too many. But no, the outright market is probably the most exciting market, because you're watching your guy come down the stretch on Sunday, hopefully with a chance to win. But it's also one of the more difficult markets to succeed in. I prefer to go, dabble lightly in the outright market in terms of risk. And then I up the ante a little bit in the top 20 finish market, or you can even go top 10 or top 30 or top 40. Obviously you don't get as good of odds, or as good a payout, but obviously you have more chance to win that bet. So I like to risk a little more in the finish position markets than I do the outright win market. And then even furthermore, my greatest amount of risk is in the head-to-head matchup market. And that's where player A is posted against player B. And of course, there are odds associated with that, a favorite and an underdog. That's actually your best chance to beat the book, because that's their lowest hold percentage. Only about a 4% hold percentage in head-to-head matchups where you take an outright market, and now Circa is very fair. They'll give you a 20, 25% hold. Some books, it might be 35, 40% hold in a futures board like this. So obviously a much more difficult market to crack.
Well, I'm going to X out of this for everyone here. Give me 1 second. And we're going to take that off the board. And what we're going to do now is the fairway is yours. You can start with the outright. You can give the breakdown of the course, whatever. We'll go from there. How's that?
Sounds good, my man. This is a very difficult tournament to predict a winner, and kind of different from last week at Bay Hill, where that course tends to repeat itself year in and year out. Scotty, now a 2-time winner there at Bay Hill. The Players' Championship is extremely random and volatile. You've got just about every champion here in the past also has multiple cuts throughout their career at this golf course. And you have all different types of players having won here. Stephen Ames and Craig Perks out of nowhere many years ago. Bombers like Jason Day and Rory McIlroy, and then shorter hitters like Siwoo Kim and Webb Simpson. There's not really necessarily one skill set you can point to that makes sense for this golf course. But like a major championship, this, again, commonly known as the 5th major, is a golf course, TPC Sawgrass, that is similar to a major championship venue in the sense that it makes you do a little bit of everything very well. There's not just one area of focus necessarily, like there often is week to week on the PGA Tour. Just last week at Bay Hill, it was so much about ball striking, length and distance off the tee, stripe the irons, long irons. And the short game probably wasn't as important. There wasn't as much emphasis on it. And obviously Scotty, wasn't putting lights out. He was putting well, and then putted lights out on the last day and won the golf tournament, but primarily did that with his ball striking through the first 3.5 days of the tournament. Here at Sawgrass, there's really no let up. You've got to stripe the irons. You've got to be accurate off the tee. I do trump driving accuracy a little bit over driving distance. You've got to scramble well. These are smaller than tour average sized greens. You're going to miss the green on occasion, and you're going to have to get up and down. They have the shaved runoff areas that are often difficult. You'll need a lot of creativity. So, again, you're going to have to do a little bit of everything well. In my stats crunch specifically, I emphasize strokes gained approach. That's something we lean on every week. And then I kind of went more towards the short game, strokes gained around the green and scrambling. I did look at par 4 performance on par 4s of 450 to 500 yards. That's what you'll find predominantly out here at TPC Sawgrass. And then I really leaned on current form, because I mentioned there's not much to course form or course history. You can kind of throw it out the window, because you'll see a guy miss a cut 3 years in a row and then win it the next year. But current form is pretty big. And what we have seen in the last 10, 20 years is current form play out in the way of who wins this tournament. I believe it's been, of the last dozen or so winners, they have all had either a win or like a top 5 finish or better leading up to this event. So that, tells you that a guy is playing well currently. Also, 11 out of the last 12 winners the week prior coming into the Players' Championship had not finished worse than 22nd. Justin Thomas, when he won in 2021, the week prior had finished 22nd. All the winners out of the last 12, 11 of those have been better than 22nd on just the week prior leading up to the Players. So another example that current form is very strong here. So along with a few skill sets, I leaned on current form pretty heavily this week. And that led me to Xander Schauffele. And we talk about value. You'll see Schauffele out there in the neighborhood of 20, 21, 23. I was able to get him at 25, which I thought was a pretty good number that we don't always see on Xander Schauffele. In 6 starts this season, he already has 4 top 10 finishes, a 10th place, a 3rd place, a 9th place, and a 4th place finish. Now, he was relatively pedestrian last week, finishing 25th at Bay Hill, so he does not check that box. But again, current form for sure, with 4 top 10 finishes already. He was runner-up here at Sawgrass in his debut, finished 19th here last year. He's got probably the best success of anyone in the field on the correlated courses that I used this week. As far as the correlated courses, I think a couple of the top dogs are Sedgefield Country Club, where they play the Wyndham, and also Harbortown, where they play the RBC Heritage, which is another Pete Dye design. I also looked at TPC River Highlands, a Dye design, TPC Potomac, Innisbrook, where they play the Valspar Championship, Muirfield Village, Jack's Place, East Lake, where they play the Tour Championship, and then Sea Island, where they play the RSM Classic. And if you look at how Xander Schauffele has done at these properties, he's won at TPC River Highlands before, has a number of top 10 finishes at the other places. He's probably the best in this field over the last 36 rounds or so on the correlated courses to Sawgrass. Also 7th in this field on approach, and also 7th in bogey avoidance over the last 36 rounds. And bogey avoidance will be very key this week. You want to avoid the big number, which always is lurking there with all this water in play on nearly all 18 holes this week. Then I went to Max Homa. He did have a great finish last week at Bay Hill, taking 8th, and he did it with a tremendous short game. His short game was absolutely spot on last week at Bay Hill, and hopefully that'll carry over this week. He's finished 13th and 6th here previously at Bay Hill. He won at TPC Potomac. He's got 2 top 10s at East Lake, a 6th at the Valspar, and 2 top 10s at the Memorial as well. Got Max at 33-1, another good number there. Then I went to Russell Henley at 40-1, another guy that had a great week last week, finished 4th at the Arnold Palmer Invitational and was 2nd in the field for strokes gained putting. He's got 4 top 10 finishes at the Wyndham. He's also got 3 top 20 finishes here at TPC Sawgrass. Also, this is an interesting note about Russell Henley. 4 of the last 8 winners of the Sony Open early in the season over on Oahu, 4 of the last 8 Sony Open winners have been Players Championship winners. And that doesn't include Russell Henley, who won the Sony Open in 2013. So maybe a bit of a connection there. Shane Lowry at 42-1. Guy's been red hot on the Florida swing. He's really taken a liking to this Florida swing ever since he made his home in Florida. He has finished 4th a couple weeks ago at the Cognizant Classic, 3rd last week at Bay Hill. He plays tough golf courses really well. He's an excellent ball striker. He's got a tremendous short game. And this was a good one that I liked. He is 4th in this field for strokes gained tee to green the last 36 rounds played on Pete Dye designs. So he really has an affinity for Pete Dye designs, and that showed up when he finished 4th at the PGA Championship a few years back when Mickelson won it at Kiowa Island. Again, another Pete Dye design. Adam Hadwin at 80-1 as we make our way deeper down the board. Hadwin, I talked about how this tournament can be so volatile and so random. He's one of the very few guys that has shown some consistency here at TPC Sawgrass. He's played here 8 times. He's only missed the cut twice, and he's made the cut 3 years in a row coming into this event with finishes of 13th, 9th, and 29th in his last 3 trips to TPC Sawgrass. He's got 2 top 10 finishes already this season, including a 4th place finish at the Genesis, a signature event, very difficult golf course. I think that speaks volumes. His only tour win in his career came at the Valspar, one of our correlated courses, and he's also got 2 top 18 finishes at Muirfield Village. If the consistency remains and he makes the cut, he's going to have a shot for a top 20 finish, maybe better. Brendan Todd, we're going to go back to the Todd father. We were on him on a successful matchup last week, and I'm going to go back to him this week at 100-1. He just finished 6th last week at Bay Hill. He was number 1 in the field in strokes gained putting, number 1 in the field in scrambling, and he was 3rd in strokes gained around the green. If he finishes that way again this week, he's probably good for another 6th place finish or possibly better. He's got a couple of top 35s at the Players Championship, including a 27th place finish last year. 2 top 10s at Sedgefield, a top 5 at Sea Island, 2 top 15s at TPC River Highlands. He's got an 8th at the Memorial and a 4th at Harbortown. Also, I mentioned I like driving accuracy a little bit better than driving distance this week. Brendan Todd, 22nd on tour in driving accuracy. And then a couple of long bombs, Alex Noren at 125-1. And we talk about that prior start leading up. You don't want to finish outside of 22nd or better. At least that's been the trend in the last 12 years. Alex Noren, his last start was at the Cognizant Classic a few weeks back in Palm Beach Gardens, where he finished 9th. So we like the current form. And it wasn't just the short game. Alex Noren is typically a guy that I point to as a short game wizard. He got it done with the irons there at the Cognizant as well. He ranked 6th in that field for strokes gained approach that week, as well as greens in regulation. Now he's 3 for 6 in cuts made at the Players Championship, which is pretty typical for a player that you would think would be a good fit for this golf course. And of those 3 times he's made the cut, he's had really good finishes, a 10th, a 17th, and a 28th. So Alex Noren at 125-1, and then one more long bomb at 125-1 in Andrew Putnam. Now, this one's a little odd. I don't often land on a player that has missed the cut every time he's been here, but that is the case for Putnam. He's been here 4 times, and he's missed the cut each of those 4 times. But I think this guy's game has started to really turn the corner in the last couple of seasons, and he's only missed 1 cut in 7 starts this year. That included a 10th place finish at the Sony Open and also an 8th last week at Bay Hill. So the game is in good form right now. And if he makes the cut, he's got a good chance to finish top 20 out of 125-1 shot. That's what I'd hope for. If he goes on to win it, hey, all the better. His short game is excellent. He's 26th on tour in driving accuracy. Over the last, the numbers make sense. Over the last 36 rounds, Putnam is 11th in this field for strokes gained putting, 36th for strokes gained approach, 9th in scrambling, and 5th in bogey avoidance. And he's also 21st on the par 4s, measuring 450 to 500 yards. So an 8-pack there for you this week. 5 guys a little bit on the shorter side: Xander, Homa, Henley, and Lowry, and then up to 80-1 for Hadwin, and then 3 triple-digit bombs with Brendan Todd, Alex Noren, and Andrew Putnam. And again, I played them all for an outright win and a top 20 finish.
And that's what I was going to come in with to reiterate. We talk about this every week. It's hard to have that one ticket. There's only one outright winner, and the rest are losers, confettis, beer coasters, whatever we want to call them. But again, you stress it with the hold that the sportsbook and casinos have, how important and imperative it is to make sure you have at least a top 20 with them as well, correct?
Absolutely. And you can kind of divide it up any way you want. I just figure if these are 8 guys that I really like with a shot to win, why not play them for top 20 as well? It is not often that I will, land on a few guys to win the golf tournament and then land on someone else to finish top 20. That just doesn't quite make sense to me. It might make sense to a number of other people, and I think it probably does. But for me, I stick with the guys that I like. And I think if they've got a shot to win, I'll go ahead and add them for a top 20 finish as well. Another thing, Jeff, that you mentioned about playing top 20s. And, I think this is a particularly important week to diversify your portfolio. I talked about the volatility of the Players Championship and how we see such randomness. You could have Jordan Spieth, Matt Fitzpatrick, Rory McIlroy, Scott. You could have the biggest names in the game miss the cut this weekend. That's just how it turns out with this golf course. It's that difficult. It's that volatile. So I think it makes sense to really spread out your bets this week too. Don't just land on all the guys that are 20-1. Don't just land on all the guys that are 80-1, but mix it up a little bit, mix it up with style of play possibly, because there is some variance to this field in this golf tournament.
Great advice, especially for the newcomers that, again, golf is just getting big and bigger. And my dad's smiling down now, probably saying, Jesus, I never thought, Mr. Dawson, that you'd be here having a show with all these people watching, and we're actually able to wager on the sport now. You usually go head to head next?
Yeah, that's all I did this week. I just have one more set of plays here, and I've only landed on a couple. I looked at some more today, and none of them really got me to the point where I was going to go ahead and place a wager. But I've got two, and head-to-head matchups vary book to book as well. So I can't promise you'll be able to find these, but I think if you look around, they should be readily available. And that is Xander Schauffele at minus 115 over Rory McIlroy. A little bit of a favorite over Rory, which I found interesting there. Rory, in 4 events on the PGA Tour this season, does not have a finish higher than 21st. We'll see if he turns that around this week. I'm kind of hoping he doesn't altogether anyway, hoping he comes up a little bit short to Xander Schauffele. And then Byung Hun An, Benny An, as a good size underdog, plus 125 to beat Corey Connors. And I've seen sharp people on both these guys here. Corey Connors, a tremendous ball striker, as is Ben On. Ben On maybe a little bit stronger off the tee or longer off the tee. Maybe Connors a bit more accurate. But Connors really struggles with the putter, and he did so last week at Bay Hill. That's always been his Achilles heel, is the short game. And Benny On been very hot this season, lost in a playoff at the Sony Open to Grayson Murray, and has had some other good finishes as well. Had a good finish just the week prior to the Sony at Kapalua. So I'll take Ben On at a nice price, plus 125 to beat Corey Connors.
A week that, as we call the 5th major, an exciting weekend. It's always great for this tournament. Just the drama of the oohs and ahs you get on 17 is enough for the average golfer there. As we get another week closer to Augusta, I know I'm putting the cart before the horse. We got a few tournaments, I think 4 tournaments before. Where will they be heading next week?
Next week, we've got the final stop on the Florida Swing, and that is the Valspar Championship. Innisbrook Resort, the Copperhead course. It's a tough one. It is one of our courses that we used as a corollary here this week. So, maybe take a close look at who's doing well this week, who finishes in that top 20. Maybe that's somebody you can use next week at the Valspar. I imagine we're not going to have quite the star power next week. The field will probably be watered down a little bit. I still think it'll be a good field because it's a very good golf course and a good tournament, but it won't be as loaded as it is this week. So you might be able to find some diamonds in the rough there. It's a ball striker's course. You got to work the ball in both directions, not necessarily a bomber's property, but I'll be looking forward to it as we get one step closer to the Masters.
The crawl has been going the whole time on X. Go to Las Vegas Golfer. You can go to golf_com at GolfBet at PGA Tour, and of course SportsGrid. But the final part of this show is always yours to tell everyone where to find all your great work and where to catch you on TV, Brady.
Yeah, TV, of course, SportsGrid. I'll be on there a little bit later today, a couple of different times, going over the Players' Championship once again. You mentioned on Twitter, on X, at Las Vegas Golfers, the handle there. And you'll see a couple of tweets that I sent out recently. One article I just published for the PGA Tour, talking with bookmakers and also sharp golf bettors on who they like and what kind of action they're seeing behind the counter this week. Also at golf.com, put up an article there with the plays that we just went over here. Maybe a little more detail you'll find in there on some of these plays that we went over. But one-stop shop is probably at Las Vegas Golfer on Twitter, because I pretty much post everything that I'm doing there on SportsGrid for the tour and also for golf.com.
I want to shout out Mr. Berry at Sports Highlights, and of course, good friend Stu Bunting. Thank you, Stu, and everyone else watching. A huge crowd watching us live. Again, if you haven't already, jump on over to YouTube, subscribe to East Coast Sports Investors channel over there. Next week, myself and Brady will be here Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, as we'll be going over the Valspar 1 week closer to Augusta. So as always, can't thank everyone enough. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from the one, the only Mr. Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. Make sure you go join him tonight on SportsGrid as well. I like to say this is the warm-up before SportsGrid. So I was going to say replay, but go catch him over at SportsGrid tonight as well. So thank everyone for following. Enjoy yourself. Cash some tickets this weekend. Enjoy yourselves, and we will see you soon.